What's up YouTube, Chris from the Review Cave here, and today I'm going to be starting a brand new series on the channel where I discuss what makes a good protagonist, and each video is going to focus on a different protagonist from a different anime. Today I'm going to be talking about Gon Freecss from the anime HunterxHunter, and to help out is someone who I consider an expert on the series and really loves the series to a nearly unhealthy degree. This is my friend Lostbox.
Hello!
So we're going to be going over how Gon has been written, and we'll go through each arc. We can talk about what Gon's mental state is and how he makes his decision. Unlike a lot of characters, he doesn't have a clear sense of right and wrong or good and evil. He just sees what he believes is good or bad, essentially. Not to mention, he does whatever he has to do when he sets his mind on something. He's very stubborn. And we see a lot of this in the Hunter exam arc of the story, when his clear goal is essentially just to become a hunter for the pure fact of meeting his dad and seeing why he left him as a child. So the Hunter exam arc does kind of start off pretty normal arc. Now, Gon, he does have a one-track mind, like a lot of other shonen protagonists. However, in the specific parts of the arc, he is kind of intuitive to things. At the start of the Hunter exam, there is this guy who's essentially like a rookie crusher. He ends up tricking participants of the Hunter exam so they could end up failing at the very start, just so we can further advance and just crush more and more people. This person had no intention of getting his Hunter license, but just saw enjoyment out of seeing other people fail. He tried to trick Gon, Leorio, and Kurapika, the other main characters of the series, into drinking some bad soda that would give him the ones, essentially. Gon, since he grew up on an island, he knows a lot of like poisons, or when things go bad, he's got a good sense of smell and taste. He figured it out, but not that he was being tricked, but the fact that he wasn't able to drink the soda because he thought it went bad. And not really much of a analysis on his character specifically, but I just figured I should bring it up.
It's like ginger ale with no flavor.
In this part of the arc, Gon and friends have to beat each of these prisoners within a certain amount of time so they can make it to the end. The guy Gon is facing, instead of an actual fight, gives him and Gon rigged candles. Essentially, the first candle to go out, they lose. So Gon ends up, instead of just waiting for the candle to go out or trying to trick him into dropping the candle or something, he just runs up and blows the candle out, which is kind of Gon's simple mindset. He doesn't exactly think things out a lot at the start of the series. He usually just goes with whatever he feels is right and natural for him. Moving on, I'm going to go with the tournament bracket part of the Hunter exam, where he's fighting Hanzo. Now, remember when I said that Gon tends to have things his way? Well, when he fights Hanzo, he is clearly outmatched. Hanzo breaks Gon's arm and continuously beats down on him. But Gon keeps getting up, saying that he doesn't want to lose and that he wants to pass. So he essentially keeps saying that there has to be another way for him to pass without having to give up or just quit the Hunter exam altogether. Obviously, he gets knocked out at the end of this, but Hanzo ends up resigning from the match so Gon can pass. This part shows Gon's stubborn nature when it comes to anything that he sets his mind toward. And that pretty much concludes the Hunter exam arc, in my opinion. Was there anything that I missed?
Plenty. During the Hunter exam arc, I want to start off with Gon leaving the island. Now, when he did leave the his home, Whale Island, he didn't exactly have permission to go off and take the Hunter exam. Now, his Aunt Mita, first of all, told him that he had to complete a task, and if he didn't, he couldn't go take the Hunter exam, because he was able to, the task of getting that giant fish out of the lake from Whale Island that was considered impossible to grab. Now, he decided to wait, be patient. You saw he wore some camouflage, and then he was able to, he put absolutely every single bit of effort that he could into catching that fish. He ended up doing it, showed his aunt, and everybody was like, hey, let him take the exam. So she did, although she was really reluctant to do it to begin with. Yeah, he took off to get the, take the exam, went to the ship. He met Kurapika and Leorio there. What I found really interesting is that, throughout the ship, the first observations that you see is that Gon does not get seasick. Everybody else does, except for Kurapika and Leorio. They're kind of just chilling there on the side. And he meets them when the captain asks, hey, what's your goal? Why do you want to become a hunter? He's like, I can't tell you. And Gon's like, oh, what's your goal? Very, very nicely. As a kid, very curious, understandable. Now, another part of Gon that's very interesting is that, we see a lot of his hunting skills in Devil Island when they go to hunt, each other. He gets Hisoka as his target, and he has to go through a lot of things just to get his tag.
Especially since Hisoka is essentially a murderous psychopath.
Yeah, so he has to be extremely careful when targeting him. We see Gon, hiding himself in bushes.
Learning how to hide his presence, which honestly does help him figure out a specific part of Nen that right before he even figured out what Nen was.
It helps him conceal his presence, and it's something that carries on, again, throughout the series. There's a lot of consistency in what Gon does because of him, hunting and hiding his presence and, learning all of these skills, being very observational and training with his fishing rod just to get Hisoka's tag and being extremely cautious. We see that Gon himself is, I wouldn't say a quick learner, but rather, again, when he's very determined to do something, he goes out of his way to do it. He will succeed in his task and he will put his mind to it. But another thing that comes up is that if Gon focuses too much on said task, he will get distracted and not notice possible dangers around him. There was another hunter that was after him at that time that he, was fishing and trying to practice with this bird in order to get Hisoka's tag.
And he didn't notice that he was being watched the entire time.
Yeah, and the hunter took it upon himself to eventually target Gon and take him down. Luckily, Hisoka was there to save the day, I guess.
The next part I do want to say really quick with Gon's clear thought process was the part with him and Leorio were trapped in that cave with that other hunter girl. So at that point, there was antitoxin for the snakes from the snake charmer that ended up dying. Gon ended up carrying everyone out of there for safety while they ended up using some kind of sleeping gas to put all the snakes to sleep while everyone got out.
Gon was able, because of a lot of his training and just being in the wilderness, growing up in Whale Island, he was able to hold his breath for a good amount of time and somehow, despite being a 12-year-old, carry Buddy out of there in a matter of seconds.
Let's move on because we spent the last 10 minutes going over the Hunter exam arc.
I mean, we are covering just about everything about Gon throughout every arc. It's going to be a long video.
Yeah. So, editor, you're in for the long haul.
I think something very clever here is that Togashi knows how to write child characters despite them being in a very shonen fantasy world and having over-exaggerated abilities. Gon still acts like a child and these things carry throughout his character. I mean, he is 12.
Yeah. Most shonen protagonists do have some kind of more mature way of thinking, which does take away from the more relatable aspects and realistic aspects of how a child or a teenager could act. Should we move on to Heaven's Arena?
Heaven's Arena, definitely.
Alright, now this is honestly one of my favorite arcs in the series, which helps introduce the whole Nen power system. After Gon and Killua reunite, they end up having to try and make some money, and they end up going into a fighting tournament over in Heaven's Arena. After easily making their way through the first couple of floors, once they reach a specific floor, they end up discovering the existence of Nen. Gon, being the kind of certain character he is, he tries to get a new friend that he made, Zushi, and try to get his teacher Wing to teach them Nen. Now Gon and Killua, they were told kind of a fake way of Nen, because Wing is very particular about choosing his students, because Nen can be used as a very deadly weapon.
Yeah.
So after they managed to figure out that he was lying and everything, they convinced Wing to teach them all about Nen. Now, after they learned the very basics of Nen, Gon ended up having to fight this guy that was essentially, I'm gonna go another version of a Rookie Crusher, essentially, but for Heaven's Arena, because in order for Nen to activate, either you have to train with meditation, or someone has to use Nen against you in order for you to unlock Nen. Gon ends up fighting this very strong guy compared to him, since he has used Nen for a long time, and Gon had just unlocked it. Gon honestly was not able to win the fight. He knew that, but he kept pushing forward to win the fight regardless. He even went against Wing's teachings of him saying to get out of the fight if you're against an opponent that's too strong for you, considering that you just learned how to use Nen. There's no way of you actually winning this. Even when he started to use N to help hide his presence, he still ended up losing the fight.
Yes, I can win!
He did have to face consequences after that fight, where he was forbidden from using Nen a whole month. Gon, despite him being very stubborn, this is the point where he does, I believe, start to mature, because he does respect Wing as a teacher, and he does take his warning and his punishment to heart.
We do see Gon in battle, he learns to adapt despite being new to Nen. You
like
know,
when he got that rematch against that top guy, and more specifically in his rematch against Hisoka.
yeah, he learned to, feel this presence of Nen, what's being used against him, predict movements, and things of that sort. From there, we kind of, see Gon improving with his Nen. He is still very stubborn and will put himself in danger. Even the referee himself kind of wanted to end that match quickly,
giving Hisoka 3 points.
Yeah.
The one thing I have to mention is how Gon was able to land his first hit on Hisoka, throw all the tiles into the air and use them as cover.
Although he didn't play much of a big role in York New, there were some interesting things here and there, especially with him dealing with the auctions.
Right, would you like to go with that?
No.
Would you like to explain Greed Island?
Greed Island was basically the sort of game for hunters created by Jing. The whole introduction to Greed Island started off, with like them going back to Whale Island and getting access to like that console and these things that Jing left for Gon, and he had to unlock them using Nen. Now, when it came to the Greed Island arc, you had to like play this game, but that came with the York New arc and all the auctions and managing to, be a participant in the game. So there's a lot of continuity there. I believe that Togashi was inspired by a lot of JRPGs in order to make Greed Island. When we get into like Gon having this like, access to like a lot of the Greed Island's data that Jing left for him, we get introduced to a whole new set of characters, and then we introduce Bisky.
Yep, another mentor who was the mentor of their previous mentor.
Yeah, when we get into like Gon's Nen ability, we see Gon uses something very simple. Gon is someone that acts very much on his emotions, and that is shown through the Nen abilities that he eventually develops in more advanced Nen techniques with Bisky. The part of Greed Island that really showed a lot more of Gon's character and how persistent and stubborn he is was when they had to have that dodgeball match with Razor, one of Jing's friends.
Now, that was a good fight. That wasn't a fight.
When Gon was in the dodgeball match, we see that he pretty much kind of burns himself out. But before burning himself out, we see that he's very persistent with using Killua after everybody else is kind of taken off the court. So the only ones left are him, Hisoka, and Killua, but he always persists that Killua has to hold the ball. He's very stubborn about who does a specific job.
Yeah, that is very true. It's one of the things I did like about that arc. Let's go into the bomber portion of the arc.
Ah, yeah, the bomber. That part was so interesting. Now, we already saw how Gon pushed his limits when it came to the dodgeball game with Razor, and how he was like very persistent to the point that he tired himself out and passed out. But like when he had to face the bomber, despite Bisky saying, hey, don't do this, what does he go do? Just like with Wing, he just ran off and did it anyway. He pulled a lot of tricks. He used his cards and he used his Nen at very good times. He sacrificed
His
an
left
arm.
Yeah, he sacrificed his arm. Very good foreshadowing also.
And I mean, like, aside from his sacrifice, we still see that Gon has this sort of optimism to him. He's still very nice and cheerful, which is very different from what we begin to see in the Chimera Ant arc. Now, with the bomber, we still see that stubbornness, but that stubbornness is just taken to another level because, as you said, he's willing to sacrifice his arm, and he's just willing to take so much damage from the bomber just to take him down. When we go into the Chimera Ant arc, things start to gradually change, and while Gon still does seem optimistic to an extent, he begins to go down a much darker path.
Gon was created to be like more of a morally neutral character, as someone who doesn't really go things based off of moral obligation. He is more making him very likely to swap between pure brutal rage and being insanely kind, as he always is.
That's when we're introduced to Kite. Now, Kite is obviously a very important figure in Gon's life. Kite is this very mentor and sort of fatherly figure towards Gon. So he kind of takes the role that Jing would have in his life, because Jing to him seems like a distant uncle, which is something we learn later on. When we meet Kite, we see how Gon bonds with Kite, how important Kite is to him, how close they are. And due to the fact that they're so close, we obviously see that Gon cares for him a lot. And when it comes to Kite's life being put in danger, Gon...
Let's be freaking losers!
until Killua had to knock him out to make sure that they would not be put into more danger. They had to go back and train with Bisky, and we see that Gon is again very persistent because he's more than happy to train and keep going at it. And he has this optimism still to him because he keeps saying Kite is still out there, Kite's alive, and in a way, he's not wrong.
And now let's go into the part where Gon's descent into darkness begins. So Gon believes that Kite is still alive. When they show what happened to Kite, he's essentially a moving corpse. Anyone that gets close to him, he attacks.
Yeah, and when we see Gon approach the Kite puppet, he still believes that Kite's alive. He doesn't know that Kite's soul is technically gone, and the only thing that remains of him is his physical body. So because of that, we see Gon still approach Kite, take the hits. He doesn't try to fight back. And we see Gon have this sort of very emotional moment. Obviously, Gon is extremely hurt that something has happened to Kite, that Kite is being quote-unquote controlled by the enemy. But at the same time, we see an anger and a hatred arise inside of him that exponentially grows. Faced with Pitou, we see that this hatred finally takes shape.
Not to mention, this hatred also helps with Gon increased physical power as well, because when Gon finally unleashes his power, Pitou literally says that Gon could actually fight the king.
But another thing that we see is that Gon hurts the people around him, especially Killua during this arc. When he sees Pitou, and Killua kind of tries to snap him back into reality.
And talk him down. Gon ends up ignoring him right away in order to finish off Pitou.
Gon tells him, technically, why would it matter to you? It means nothing to you. Because Kite was closer to Gon, although Killua did want to partake in this together and defeat Pitou together. Yeah. Gon, however, made this about him. His battle. This is his fight, and this is the revenge. He finally gets to satisfy this anger that's been inside him because of the damage done to Kite.
After the fight, he obviously lost an arm. Right after the fight, he was bedridden. He couldn't move, he couldn't speak. Essentially, it was like he was cursed.
When Pitou revealed to Gon that, Kite was actually dead, it broke him completely. His Nen increased exponentially. He took what Nen he would have had later on in his life and basically
gave it to himself right now.
And he became someone extremely dangerous with enough potential to defeat the king. It was his emotions, his anger, and similar to the contract that Kurapika made, he took a sacrifice. He himself said during that battle, I don't care what happens to me at this point.
Now, I do like how in the 13 Champions election arc, Gon doesn't really have that much of a hands-on role in what goes on in that arc.
I mean, he is bedridden.
Exactly. Gon did somewhat learn a lesson from his actions.
I wouldn't say that he did or didn't learn anything specifically in the 13th Champion election arc because, Gon was bedridden for most of that arc, and when he finds out that Killua's sister, Aluka,
saved Gon's life,
is thankful, but he realizes how much he hurt Killua, although Killua kind of plays it off as a joke, and Gon, being the kid he is, whines and he's like having a little moment there, although it's not to be taken very seriously. However, when Killua pulls him into the alley, explains the situation to him, Gon and Killua kind of look at each other and say that they can't stay there much longer because if they do, and then they kind of cut off. Despite the fact that Gon may be thankful for what Killua did, he's aware of what he's done. And despite Killua making it seem not so serious with the way that he was talking about it to Gon, how he hurt his feelings and how he was depressed during that time that Gon hurt himself and was bedridden and did all of these things and distanced himself, there's just a really big impact there. There's just a lot of emotion carried throughout that scene. Although aside from that, we move on to how Gon goes to meet his dad and he finally gets to achieve his goal.
The series' long arc for Gon at this point has been finally completed. Yeah, with everything we've gone through, this is essentially Gon's character, someone who has no real moral grounding or direction, who basically is insanely stubborn and does whatever he feels he has to do. He'll ignore other people if it means he does what he does, like a child does. So yeah, that essentially wraps up Gon's character in a very long video. And don't worry, whatever other videos I do about Protagonist will be a lot shorter than this. It's just we had a lot of things to explain about Gon.
I mean, there probably is a lot of more things if you like really get into the nitty-gritty, especially if you look into the manga, but
Shut your mouth!